Peace, beautiful humans. A quick video to just lift, honor, thank, embrace all Intrinsic Paths patrons. As many of you know, I am creating full-time around this kind of experimental invitation called Intrinsic Paths, and most of my support and capacity to move in this way moves through Patreon. So to each and every one of you that have chosen to move alongside in this way, I just send you all my gratitude and all my love and all the things, because you make it possible for me to freely create in so many beautiful ways. So a little morning sketch to show some of these things. Patrons' gratitude and love for each of you and how you support all these different pieces. Walking invitation. I spend so much of my creative energy and time mobilizing, moving, hosting, inviting around our first form of getting around. So all the benefits, the health, the healing, the connection to the planet, to the earth, the connection to our deep heart, our deep truths, connection to the horizon, to the sky, to Mother Earth and the soil. So moving the way we're made to move. So that's hosting walks, it's walking routes, it's poetry around walking, it's practices around walking, all of that stuff. Connected with that is my creative campaign work around pedestrian dignity, honoring the dignity of people that have no choice but to be moving this way, and all the gaps and barriers and cliffs and edges that they face to navigate everyday transportation. So obviously all of this inclusive to people who move by wheelchair, families, kids, older adults, all the things in terms of helping us, inviting us, and seeing a future and a time where we can move safely and comfortably the way we're made to move. So again, connected to that, thinking about, in a lot of my poetry and a lot of my writing and a lot of my work is related to and around themes of speed and how fast we bypass one another and the planet and our own thoughts and our own stories of pain and our own joy and dreams and all the things by way of the automobile, by way of time, by way of the strings that other people pull. So when we think about intrinsic paths, this is all about what is divine and beautiful within each of us that calls out for us to be more attentive to the natural world, more attentive to each other, and more attentive to ourselves. So moving that into another theme within Intrinsic Paths is what I call engaged contemplation. So thinking about, this is someone resting in the woods between a rock and under a tree, maybe in the mountains, maybe in the prairie, anywhere, and just being connected to presence and stillness and calmer time, into places of rest, places of breathing all the way in and breathing all the way out, as a way of helping us catch up to all that is actually going on inside of us. So I do a lot of guided meditations for individuals and groups. I do a lot of ritual for individuals and groups. And so much of this goes unseen in the social media realm, in the, even in the Patreon realm. So patrons, you allow for me to move and live in all of these different spaces with everything I have. So connecting us to nature wisdom. This is a juniper kind of coming out in between the mountains. The juniper tree is the logo symbol of Intrinsic Paths. The twisted bark, the slow growth, the radical, inspiring color on the inside, and the constant shedding of old skin, and the twisted branches kind of filling the spaces between. So the juniper tree is definitely close to my heart as a way of inviting Intrinsic Paths. Making jewelry and art. So I do a lot around creating art and jewelry for patrons, but also gifting these to other people. So you can see all these rocks that I've got spread out here. I cut fallen juniper and cedar branches. You can see one of the pieces here of a stone and just how it rests and helps us ground and center. A lot of themes within Intrinsic Paths kind of leans into challenging our defaults around money. So I just put 2 videos around this amazing book called Emergent Strategy, where we think beyond just transaction and what can grow and emerge when we're paying attention to these other elements of being human before money and time and human beings as producers. Thinking back to the strings other people pull, others pull. Intrinsic Paths is this creative exploration around just honoring the wholeness of humanity and not defining more or less a colonial construct of extracting people and extracting from the planet as a way of being human. That we are way more dynamic. We have real emotions. We have spiritual explorations that surround all these different things. So a lot of the themes in Intrinsic Paths and a lot of the creative work kind of moves around some of those frames. And then thinking about this other realm, human dignity, social justice, racial justice, thinking about economic justice, all like kind of justice as a theme, dignity as a theme around honoring, what is being oppressed when top-down systems. I love this term by Adrienne Marie Brown. What is creating a culture of anti-nurturing? And how can we unpack it? How can we create practices and rituals around it? And so a lot of my work shown here, kind of with the roots and the trees and the different images and the silhouettes, is around movement building. And so I come alongside a lot of individuals and organizations who are dreaming of different ways of being, who are putting their cultural traditions and backgrounds into the ether. So it's just moving alongside, it's supporting, it's however I can be used in whatever way to support, mobilize, lift up, anything. So you can see some of the partners that I work with in the movement building space. If you go to the Intrinsic Paths website, you'll also see all of the names of patrons, beautiful patrons that are coming alongside. So if you go to intrinsicpaths.com and you visit the patrons and partners page, you'll see some of the groups that I'm coming alongside. So there's a lot in between and around all that. I didn't want to make this too long, but I just wanted to honor each and every patron who has chosen to come alongside this work. There is no formal way of drawing support for food and some of the expenses that go into this kind of work. I don't have a lot of expenses, and there are some. And so to have patrons alongside means the world to me. And so I'm sending so much gratitude, and I'm going to leave with this beautiful, with these lyrics of this beautiful song. This is a song, and this is translated in English, so the Espanol version is so much more true and better, so listen to it, by Dene Suarez. It's called Flores, and translated in English, Flowers. So if you want, after this, just listen to that song. But what I imagine as I listen to these words, and as I hear this song, I imagine the divine feminine kind of rising, just rising on like kind of facing so much power, so much artificial time, so much heavy top-down, heavy systemic, paved, concrete, speed, money-centered reality, and she's just rising. And she's not throwing rocks, she's leaving petals and flowers behind her as she moves, but she's rising with strength. And the words that I just love is resistance before change. Where I stand, there is no confused spirit. Where I stand, there is no confused spirit. Flowers. I hear a voice in the distance. Something tells me to let it in. I was waiting for a very old consciousness to bring forth truth. It says, resistance before change. Where I stand, there is no confused spirit. There's no room for my grudges. In my struggle lies my humility. You ask with stones, I answer with flowers. Flowers for the losers, flowers for the losers, flowers for the losers, flowers for the losers. Resistance before change. Where I stand, there is no confused spirit. Resistance here. So when I think about flowers for the losers, I know that's a complex frame, but thinking about just this, when I think of loser, I don't know that that's the right word. Again, the Espanol is so much better, but I think what that refers to is the people, and even the energy in ourselves. Like, none of us are separate from this, but the energy in ourselves to separate ourselves from each other and or to take on positions of domination over one another or over a planet. So whenever there's a power construct that wants to manipulate and control people or manipulate and control the planet, that there is a losing energy in that. You're losing so much of the human code, of the human way. You know, and also thinking about when we think we are separate from each other, that because you're different, or because you believe a different, or because you look different, or because you operate in a relationship that's different, whatever, because anything, that when we feed separation, that we're also generating a losing spirit around humanity and human thriving. So that's how I would, so just be invited. Patrons, thank you for all of your blessing and everything you do alongside this creative work. And if this leaves you curious, if you are not a patron, be invited. Just check out patreon.com/Intrinsic Paths. Peace, and gratitude. Cheers.